Alright, I'm back. I just got done filming another video, and my camera, it didn't cut off on me, but, I forgot to pause the video while I got up, and, went to go get my charger, and I came back and sat down and realized I was 11 minutes in, I had to stop and re-record. My allergies have been fucking with me all day. Anyway, I just filmed the video, I haven't uploaded it yet, about why I've been gone for so long, but, this one I'm going to talk about my book, Skybound. Let me get my water, hold on. Alright, I'm back. I had to get my water. So, Skybound is a book about, it's a sci-fi. I made a video about it 6 months ago, and I've been working my ass off since on lore. Coming up with stuff, lore, extended lore, facts about the alien races in the story. Because it's sci-fi, I've got to have some good alien races. So I've got this race called the Keonians from the planet Keonia that are these crustacean-like creatures. They're not crustaceans, obviously, they evolved on a totally different world, but they evolved on this super Earth-type planet that's that's like the size of the sun. It's like this huge planet that based on the laws of physics shouldn't exist. It's an anomaly, but somehow it does. And and there's this race has advanced technology, but the way they look, they walk on these crab-like legs. You know the little pointy legs that crabs have or lobsters have. They walk on legs like that, but they're bipedal though. They stand upright, and they have 4 of these legs at the base of their body. So imagine this for a moment. Take a lobster, okay? It's like they lay down like this and crawl, right? Okay, stand the lobster up, put legs on the bottom of it, and it's got a face up here, and it's got arms that are really muscular and hands with posable thumbs and 7 fingers. So they're pretty much walking fucking crabs. Why does my video keep going up? It needs to be brighter. Hold on. Okay. They're pretty much walking crabs, but they know English. They can speak all these languages from other races because they monitor a bunch of planets. They're so advanced. And prior to the Younger Dryas event, if you don't know what that is, look it up. But I'll make a video about that in a little bit. But prior to the Younger Dryas event, there was this ancient empire called the Dofdek Empire, and Earth used to be called Doften, and it was ruled by the immortal Emperor Dofdek, who had a trade route set up between Earth and Keonia. And one day Earth just went dark. And the Younger Dryas event, if you don't know, was when a gigantic meteor hit Earth like 12,000 years ago. And there's not a lot of history prior to that. Even though humans were around before that, there's not a lot of ruins before that. And if there are ruins, they're like astronomically aligned and don't make sense. Like, they're really strange ruins with not a lot of history behind them. Excuse me, with not a lot of history behind them. Nobody knows who built them. So it's just strange. So I figured it'd be a good thing to write a lot of my lore around as something that ancient that nobody knows about, because it's like you could speculate, wow, did that really happen? And it makes your brain run wild. But and that is a good question. Like, what if what if we wouldn't know, if we've been around for 500,000 years, we would not know what somebody was doing 200,000 years ago. We could have been on Mars. People want to talk about they see pyramids on Mars. What if we built those fucking pyramids? We went to Mars and built pyramids. We went to Jupiter, colonized the moons out there, and then went all the way out of the solar system, went all the way to the Andromeda Galaxy and left our galaxy. We could have done these things. And then just Younger Dryas event comes, fucks us up, and we go back in time. People want to say, oh, where's the fucking evidence of these ancient empires? There should be artifacts. Well, there's no artifacts because here's a good example. You want to build an advanced spacecraft, you're building it out of metal, right? Technically, you could make it out of biological tissue too, but you're building it out of metal in our case. So, metal rusts. You take a car and sit it outside, it'll rust to nothing in 100 years. So, I mean, in 40,000, in 12,000 years, I can imagine that shit would rust real bad. It'd be dust by now. So, yeah. Even there's no ruins from this time unless they're buried 10 feet in the ground or at the bottom of the ocean, or no, 200 feet in the ground or at the bottom of the ocean. So, I mean, it's such a mysterious time period, and I have this Dofdek Empire written at this time period that existed like 200,000 years ago. Younger Dryas event came and fucked it up. The only thing left of the Dofdek Empire is a couple colonies sitting around that were then invaded by a race of beings from what's known as the Isles of Motef, which there was this planet called Motef, which is sort of like the planet from Star Wars The Last Jedi, where I don't like that movie that much, but there's this scene where they got this casino planet, which is not a very popular scene for most people, but I found it interesting. I was like, let me write a planet about this. So there's this planet called Motef. It's like the melting pot of the galaxy, and it's like all the scum come there, and there's casinos all over. It's a city planet like Coruscant, but it's all full of shit. The crime rate's through the roof. Shit's all fucked up there. And one day a meteor hits it, and just the planet goes into several pieces. And by the planet's core was cool too. It was a dead planet, but they were keeping it alive via terraformers and putting out greenhouse gases and stuff. So this meteor hits, and because the core is cool, it's just a big solid chunk of rock. It busts like this, but the planet was big, so the gravity is strong enough. It holds itself together to some extent. So it's a bunch of rocks floating out in space, and you have all these. The way that I've designed it in my head, you have all these what they call airboats you can get on. They take you from the space boats. They take you on from one of the islands floating in space to the other rock, and so that goes from being the planet Motef to the Isles of Motef, and which is badass. But one of the Dofdek Empire's colonies is invaded by these people of Motef, because when the meteor hit, they were looking for resources wherever they could find them, and just turned into a lot of the people that lived on that planet that owned spaceships took to the stars and became space pirates and went stealing shit from everybody, and they invaded this colony and fucked everything up. Despite the Dofdek's empire being the more advanced than even the Keonians, they still got ravaged. And the only person left to live, or two people left living, there was a guy named Corvos, who I have not come up with the last name for yet. I'm thinking, no, that wouldn't work, because I think that was used before, but I was going to say Amadana or something, but I think that was used for Star Wars. Yeah, that was Leia's last name. See, I think it was Leia's last name. I can't remember. I think that was used. But it does fit together, Corvos Amadana. That sounds really cool, but I can't use that. That sucks. But, but I have to come up with something for that. But, and then there's Emperor, the immortal Emperor Dofdek, who's biologically immortal. He's half a cyborg. He's a total fucking badass, but nobody knows where he is. Corvos doesn't even know, and he lived with him. So he's off in exile, and you find him in the book, or Zenith finds him in the book. This is not a game, you don't find him. Zenith finds him in the book, but I won't go into that because that'd be a major spoiler. But, see, I'm not spoiling things. I'm telling you the events that happen in the book, but, see, it's not spoiling it because you don't know how those events transpire, and there's a bunch of little things that happen in between those. I'm just telling you the broad spectrum of what happens, not how it happens. And I'm not spoiling everything either, because there's some stuff, there are some times where, some characters will die and stuff like that. And I'm not going to tell you how they die, see, you won't see it coming and stuff like that. And I'm not going to tell you who those characters are. Just know that they're in there. But, so I'm not spoiling hardly anything. I'm just telling you roughly what it's about so you know, and some of the lore behind it. But Zenith is this kid. To tell you about a little bit about Zenith, he's the main protagonist. His name is Zenith Eon, and he's a super intelligent, badass guy who was born in the year 1999. He's born November 5th, 1999, which is my same birthday. I'm trying to make him a lot like me, in a lot of respects, except Zenith is a sociopath, and he does not have gender dysphoria or depression. He's literally like just a badass incarnate. He's got emotions, but he's sort of a sociopath type figure because he's seen a lot of shit in his time, and he doesn't really show emotion all the time. He can be merciless. He can be merciless a lot. Got tongue tied there, but hold on a minute. Let me get my lighting going here. Okay. So what happens is Zenith is this kid who's super smart. He's born to this family of two abusive drug addicts and alcoholics, and he has to deal with these fuckheads for his entire childhood. They beat him, abuse him, call him names. He goes to school and gets made fun of by a bunch of kids and stuff, so yeah, he's totally fucked up. So it's based a bit off my childhood there, but so he's this fucked up kid. He's got this view of the world. Everybody sucks and he hates everybody. So he's just an edgy teenager, but he's not really, because the world is shit. In Skybound, Europe has fallen to third world theocrats. The Islamic terrorist migrant crisis that's like taken over Sweden and stuff has taken over all of Europe, and all of Europe is fucked. It's all fallen. Every country has fallen. There's a genocide against white people and any minority. White people, Asian people, gay people going around all across Europe. They're all getting fucked. Everybody's getting killed. Ancient pagan altars that have been around for thousands of years that are like historically important to the cultures of Europe are destroyed. And in the book, Notre Dame doesn't burn because of a random fire that mysteriously occurs. It's burned by these pillagers from the Middle East that destroy it. So it's like Europe's fucked. Canada was annexed by the U.S. in this book too, because the Earth is overpopulated. And see, in this book, by the time Zenith is 10 years old, there's 17 billion people on the Earth. So it's like an alternate version of today's time. See, we're looking forward to in the future having overpopulation problems. So we're getting ready to go to Mars and stuff like that to compensate for that. In Skybound, not so much, because the technology of the time is roundabout where it is today, or where it was in 2010. So when Zenith is 10, the technology is around where it was when he was 10. You got your PlayStation 3 and stuff like that. Graphics technology wasn't the best. SpaceX wasn't that big of a force yet. So I mean, it was where it was in real life in 2010. Hold on. And so he's a visionary type kid too. At age 8, he builds this engine from scratch while his parents were gone on vacation. They left him at the house. And they came back, and he had built a car engine from scratch. There were 2 cars in at the neighbor's house, and he had went over to the neighbor's house, snuck over there, because they were on vacation too. It was his family and their family, because they're both fucked up drug heads. But they went on this vacation to, I can't remember. Oh yeah, they went to Florida with some extended family, because they got invited. It was this big family reunion thing, and they all went to Florida, but they left the kid because nobody liked him. So they left Zenith because he was hated by everybody, and he's left here. And he says, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to build a car. So he takes they were gone for like 2 weeks, and so in this time, he builds with just basic tools like wrenches and stuff. He takes apart this engine, these 2 engines from these 2 cars, and builds them up into one big badass engine, and puts it into his dad's truck. So it can go like 200 miles per hour and crazy shit like that. And they get home and see what he's done, and they're like, they're like shocked. And it's amazing what he did, and then different people around town catch a wind of it, and they're like, man, this kid's fucking smart. He's 8 years old, but there's something going on there. So his aunt goes with him to get his IQ tested, and it's 400. He's got a 400 IQ as an 8-year-old, so he's like the smartest person in the world, literally. Nobody alive has an IQ of 400, and nobody who's ever lived has. Some of the smartest people that ever lived had IQs of 260. So he's smarter than Einstein. He's smarter than Isaac Newton. He makes Isaac Newton look like a fucking turd at age 10. So it's obviously you get some sci-fi there, but what happens is Zenith writes this book when he's 19 called what was it? The Jade Technocracy, and it was sort of like his version of the Communist Manifesto. So I'm drawing from my political beliefs here, but and it fits the story because it's a sci-fi story about this super smart dude who develops this space age technology and goes to space in it and becomes like a space pirate type guy. Soars to the stars and starts his own empire outside of Earth and becomes like the new Emperor Dovdek and shit. So it's like I've sort of got to pull from the technocratic idea here because he too is a technocrat. So he writes this book called The Jade Technocracy, and he gets a fan base from it like the Communist Manifesto did 200 years ago. People loved it, and he gets this fan base, and this one very, very, very important figure catches wind of this book, and this 19-year-old Zenith guy, and reads this book, and he's like, whoa, this makes sense, and it aligns with his own beliefs, and the guy's name is Joffrey Miller, and he's the CEO of this company called Dortega Aerospace, which is this aerospace company that sort of takes place of SpaceX. Like, you got SpaceX today run by Elon Musk, and so this is Dortega Aerospace run by Joffrey Miller. And Joffrey Miller's equally as intelligent as Zenith. He's like, or almost, he's like a 360 IQ. So the guy's fucking intelligent. He's really, really smart. He's a genius. And he reaches out to Zenith and offers him a job. And Zenith at the time is going to college. So, and he just graduated from college and couldn't find a job. And he's up to his eyes in student loan debt. And he can't find a job anywhere also because resources are slim. Jobs are slim because there's so many people and so much automation. A lot of stuff's automated. A lot of the important things that humans could do to further the economy is automated. Things like, because you got self-driving cars, semi-truck drivers aren't around anymore. So a lot of people are just sitting around with nothing to do, and because we live in a capitalist system, there was nothing to help these people out. So a lot of people are jobless and they're fucked. There's no money being made, so the economy's drying up. And, I gotta fix this shit. Hold on. And so Zenith's jobless. Only the smartest of smart people that can maintain these self-driving cars and all these automated systems and stuff can have jobs. Only these really, really smart people. So Zenith goes to where did Zenith go? Zenith is reached out to by Joffrey Miller. Joffrey reaches out to him and he says, I read your book and I really like it and all, and I've had some guys watching you for a while. And so Joffrey's this really rich guy too, so he can pay to have people spied on if he wants. Buy out police so they don't notice. So he's kind of a criminal guy too, but he wants Zenith watched. So while Zenith is on campus for the last couple of years of his college, he's being watched by he's being watched by Joffrey, and Joffrey reaches out to him, and he's like 22, and he's like, hey, I've been watching you for a couple of years, and you just graduated. I hear you can't find a job and stuff. Why don't you come work for me and be my little right-hand man type guy or whatever? So Zenith accepts this, and he goes to work with Joffrey. And Joffrey at first did not know how good he was with rocket, with anything physics-based or mechanics-based or anything. Like he was just skilled in any field of science, in any field of mechanics. He was the expert at it. And Joffrey doesn't know this at first. And Zenith behind the scenes has got his own plans too. So Zenith is like he's wrote this book, and he's got a really, really hardened fan base by this point. He's got a lot of fans of his political ideas and stuff. And he comes up with the ideas like, you know what? I'm going to start a political party. So at age 23, he starts a political party. But you're probably wondering what he does at Dortega Aerospace with Joffrey Miller. He works on concept designs for craft. And that's when Joffrey figured out how good he was with coming up with ship designs and things like that. Because Joffrey realized that the overpopulation thing was a problem. And that if we didn't get off of Earth, we were fucked. Because the whole reason I mentioned earlier that the U.S. annexed Canada, the reason that happened is because of the world's resources running out, and Canada was still sparsely populated at this time, so the U.S. was like, fuck it, we gotta space out our population, take Canada. We took Canada, and also took Mexico too. and it just became one gigantic United States empire type thing. And it devolves into no longer ruled by president, but ruled by an emperor, and it's like an autocracy by this point, because or an oligarchy, excuse me. You got like the one emperor leading things, but you got this he's like a puppet emperor, and you got this council of elders that sort of whispers in his ear and tells him what to do. So it's this fucked up disgrace of a United States. But Joffrey knows this is a problem and thinks that we should get off of Earth. And Zenith agrees with him, and Zenith starts a political party, which starts off being his own little personal plan that he didn't let Joffrey know on, but him and Joffrey agreed that we need to go off the planet, but Zenith did not tell Joffrey what his plans for doing that was. So Zenith starts this political party, and goes to these rallies and stuff, and builds up more support for himself, and takes donations for this party of his. And because you still have political parties, it's like in North Korea where you can have different parties and stuff, but they never get elected. Like the leader of these parties never get elected, but they're sort of like allowed to exist. It's weird. You can't elect anyone other than Kim Jong fuckhead, but you can have other parties there. So it's like that with the U.S. It's this weird system where you can have political parties, but right before the guy is elected, if they think this guy is going to get elected, they have him assassinated or something like that. But technically, parties can still exist. And so he does this just as a front to raise donation money. And he embezzles the money overseas, and smuggles it over to Greece and shit, and makes a whole bunch of money. Takes a lot of it, and then he uses that money, and he invests it into the economies of the world that are still doing somewhat good, and makes money that way. And then he uses the money to put back into Ortega Aerospace, so they have a lot of money to work with. And Zenith's support keeps growing and growing and growing for this political movement, and so what happens is the government steps in and gives him money. The government steps in and they go, you know what, dude, this is a fucking problem. You're a very smart guy. We don't want to have to assassinate you. So do us a favor and shut up. And Zenith's like, well, I'd like for you to pay me to shut up. He said, because I'm not going to deny everyone utopia because you don't like it. And they were like, okay, well, you know what? Here's $36 billion. Now shut the fuck up. So that's what they do. They give him $36 billion, and he immediately goes and tells Joffrey about what he's been doing. And he's like, oh, shit. Well, Joffrey knew about the political party, but he didn't know about the embezzling money and stuff like that, and what he'd been doing with all that. He didn't know where he'd been getting all this money from. And so... Sorry, this chair is very squeaky. But, so he tells Joffrey about what he's been doing, and then they start working together on building what they call the Vega Class Sea Carrier, which is this ship that is designed to carry resources from Earth to the moon. And so resources are low at this time, so people are having to pay a premium for things, especially Zenith. So he's wanting to build ships. He's paying a lot of money for things that would be lower priced today. Small parts like electric wiring, stuff like that, costs a shit ton in this time. So he's paying exorbitant amounts for stuff. Companies hemorrhaging money, but they are getting lots of money too. So they break even every time. So the Ortega Aerospace somehow is surviving. And then what happened is they're surviving because of Zenith's efforts in embezzling all this money and investing in foreign nations and stuff. So what happens is they eventually build this first ship. It takes them like 6 years. So Zenith by this time is like 22. He's about 26, 7, somewhere around there. No, he's about 28, 29, somewhere around there. But they build this Vega Class Sea Carrier and load up a bunch of shit from Earth and carry it there. It's this big carrier ship, and they build, after the first mission is successful, they build like 80 more of them. So then they're able to carry massive amounts of resources from Earth, and then they stopped buying from, they bought resources from the U.S. to give the company a good image, and then they slowed down on buying from the U.S. because it was overcharging for stuff, and they started buying from third world countries. So it plays a lot off of corporate corruption and stuff in today's time too, because like Apple, they have their stuff built in China by slaves because it's cheaper. But that's essentially what Ortega Aerospace is doing. They're having their stuff built overseas because it's cheaper, and they're buying their parts from other countries because it's cheaper too. Because cheap labor makes them, and they can buy them for cheap. So what happens is they build 80 of these Vega Class C carriers, and they haul these parts to the moon. Now, why are they hauling all these parts to the moon? Okay, they're building something called the Magnos. The Magnos 2. Why it's number 2 is because the Magnos 1, they had drawn up a blueprint for it, and it wouldn't have worked. It wasn't. It wasn't. I can't remember exactly what the problem was. Oh yeah, in the original thing, they left out the jump drive in their blueprints, so they scrapped it, and then they kept on going. Now, you'll be thinking, oh, I thought you said that the technology was on par with what we have today. It was outside of Ortega Aerospace. They have been developing a lot of stuff behind the scenes. So by this point in time, they have antimatter thruster technology. They're using 0-point energy to drive crafts too. They have really, really advanced solar sails, so once they get into space, they can catch little tiny bits of light and go really far. So they're badass. They got ion thrusters and stuff. But of course, you want the particles to fire. You want the ionized particles to fire over the magnetic plate. You don't want to burn the magnetic plate in two. But anyway, that's what they do. They have all this technology behind the scenes, and what happens is the government stops using Area 51 to test their craft because they have an underground base now that's like miles deep that they can test their craft in. They had secretly started constructing in 1964, and it had just gotten done. So they moved all their operations from Area 51 to there. So guess what happens? Ortega Aerospace makes a nice offer to the U.S. government to buy fucking Area 51, which they succeed in doing. They paid like billions of dollars, but they get Area 51 all to themselves. They begin testing their crafts out here. Now, the Magnos cannot be tested on Earth. It's has to be constructed on the moon because of its size. It's like a modular ship, though. It starts off small-ish and builds itself up over time, and it becomes this massive fucking planet-sized ship. But what happens is the U.S. government put a ban on Zenith trying to leave the planet and stuff. They are trying to leave, what was it? Yeah, on trying to build this ship and leave Earth, and it was no reason for it apart from like in North Korea. Why can't I leave North Korea? Oh, because we say so. If you try to escape, you get shot. It was that type of deal. The United States had control of the moon, though, so he was allowed to go to the moon. And if the government caught wind of him building this massive thing on Earth, he's fucked, because they knew what he was going to do. Oh, I'm going to load up people in it, we're going to leave and go out past Mars. Fuck you, that he'd get assassinated. So he said, we need to build it on the dark side of the moon. To which Joffrey was found that humorous. But anyway, he tells him he's serious, and they eventually agree. He convinces him, we need to build this thing on the moon. That's what the Vega carriers are for. They carry the parts to the moon necessary to build it, and they build it on the moon. And what happens is they're like mass kidnapping a bunch of people from other countries. This company is. So they're like an Illuminati type force. They're so fucking. This company's like has sway over governments because it's making so much money from Zenith's efforts as well as Joffrey. I'm not going to go into Joffrey's efforts because I hadn't completely wrote the story up for Joffrey yet. Even though he is a crucial figure, he's Zenith's best friend in the book, in the story. I mean to say, but so what happens is Zenith. Ortega Aerospace, they finished the Magnos in like the year 2030. So it was a very quick construction process because they had hired and also smuggled a bunch of people from other countries to go to that to go to the moon with them to construct it. They smuggled them into the U.S. And would get them, like, they was skilled laborers. It wasn't like a lot of people, but they would get like a couple skilled laborers from other countries, like a couple geniuses from other countries, like this genius in electrics. Okay, you come here. Here's your fake papers. You're a phony U.S. citizen. Okay, to the moon you go, because you had to be a U.S. citizen to go to the moon because the moon was U.S. controlled. So to the moon you go. But and there was nobody on the moon living because it was used for titanium mining. So, or at least at that time, because of the resource shortage and stuff. So they were using it for titanium mining. And how Zenith was able to build this thing on the moon is he convinced the U.S. government that it was going to be a colony for slaves to work in that would mine titanium for the U.S. government only. It was going to be a colony. It was going to be like a big city structure. And then the government backs him. The government was like, oh, you're building a moon colony. Great. Well, let's throw money at it. So they throw him billions of dollars. Now they have even more money to work with because Zenith lied to them. Oh, it's a moon colony. In reality, it's an interstellar spaceship called the Magnos 2. But, sorry about that. Something between my teeth. The U.S. government starts funding it. And so it's a massive empire, even with the resource shortage. And smaller sort of and weakening economy, there's still a lot of money to go around at this point in time. So they throw money at Ortega Aerospace because they're like, you know, this titanium can make us a lot of money. We can sell it to other countries and stuff. We have a monopoly on the moon. Fuck it, let's mine it. Ortega's going to mine it for us. Let's pay him. And so the Ortega builds it. They build the Magnos very quickly using this government money and stuff. And then they're like, okay, well, we need resources up here for the slaves. And the U.S. government has food delivered up there and stuff using these Vega carriers, of which they build more. They deliver food there. Now, to give you an idea of the Magnos, it is a spaceship containing skyscrapers. It is a huge-ass ship. There are 4 cities inside of it. At the time of its construction, there are 4 cities inside of it containing skyscrapers of the height of the Burj Khalifa and the what is it called? Oh yeah, the One World Trade Center in New York. So they're all super tall skyscrapers. Because the idea Zenith had is he was forward thinking. There's not that many people living in the ship to begin with. Like, a lot of the cities are empty. And a lot of the people that he moves onto the ship are maintenance people to take care of the fucking cities, to keep them from rotting away inside the ship. But what happens is he's planning for the future. When you go to the stars, he's already expecting there to be alien life. Because his company, Ortega Aerospace, or him and Joffrey's company, pretty much with Zenith, he's making a lot of the decisions. They have these, They have these satellites in space that are designed to pick up radio signals. The satellites. And they pick up all these signals from other worlds, and not just radio signals, but any sort of wave, gravity waves and things like that, all this stuff. And so what happens is they pick up on these radio waves from other worlds and that are radio signals, and they're speaking these in various languages that have never been heard before. And they're like, yeah, there's life out there. Zenith wants to get in on this. He's like, wants to take some of these life forms, move them onto the Magnos, and then keep going. So pretty much, he wants the Magnos to be like High Charity from Halo, which is like the big, it's like that big city that flies through space. It's like a planet-sized spaceship with cities inside of it, and it flies through space. It's got its own self-contained atmosphere and stuff. It's like that. But the Magnos is finished being constructed, and then Zenith says, okay, all those who were involved with helping me build it, you can come now. And that's what he does. All the people, the millions of people that were slaves, they move on to the Magnos, and they leave. They just leave. They leave with all the food that the government gave them and stuff, because there was not a whole lot of government representatives. I mean, there were some military people on the moon to make sure Zenith wasn't up to no good. But the problem was that Ortega Aerospace had their own private military. They had their own, well, not private military. I guess it was a private military. They had their own private military, and that was known as the Blackguards. That was developed by Zenith. It was Zenith's idea that he gave to Joffrey, and Joffrey approved of it, and they went on to build it. I mean, not build it, but they went on to do that. So that there was more of them than there were U.S. troops on the moon. So they didn't get touched. They didn't fuck with them, and lest they halt the entire mining process. So they just left. And And then the military reported back to Earth what had happened, and there was nothing they could do because the type of thruster that the Magnos uses is a gravity manipulation type of engine. So what it does is this drive, it warps gravity waves. So it surrounds the ship in its own self-contained gravity field. And when the gravity field warps its shape or warps its form, warps in what direction it pulls, think of Gravity Rush, the game on the PS Vita and PS4 too, or Gravity Rush 2, where you change the pull of gravity and you fly in different directions at varying speeds depending on how hard the gravity is pulling. That's the way the Magnos works. So you can adjust the pull of the gravitational pull to pull in any direction and in any force. So you can go nearly light speed in this thing. So they just take off. They leave. They're gone. See you later, buddy. So they go to first stop's Mars. They go to Mars and they mine a lot of titanium off of its surface because they have mining drills and all on this ship too that the government supplied them with for mining titanium because they thought it was going to be a colony. So they have these laser mining drills and they mine all this stuff off of Mars so that they can build more equipment for their ship. Because inside these cities they're divided into different districts. Like you have the residential district. The industrial district is interesting because what that's for is pumping out greenhouse gases into the ship for use in in forming an artificial atmosphere, pretty much. So they pump out greenhouse gases, and then they have oxygen terraforming devices that convert the carbon being put out into oxygen to be used in their phony atmosphere. So it's pretty neat. But so the Magnos is like a self-contained planet that moves through space, pretty much. And what happens is they get to Mars and they find the ruins of this ancient civilization there. They don't know it's ancient. They know it's ancient because it's ruins, but they don't know who built it. And it's ruins like you'd find on Earth. There's pyramids and stuff, and it's sort of based off, once again, pulling from reality a bit. There are people that think that there's, and I'm one of them, that think that there's ruins in the Cydonia region of Mars. Not necessarily the face on Mars, but that was just a camera glitch. Or not a camera glitch, but a low-res camera from the 70s that caught that. But even with modern technology, it looks like there's stuff, all kinds of shit. Towers out there. There's pyramids and shit on the Cydonia region. So I'm trying to pull from that. So what happens is they land on Mars and find all this crazy stuff. And even stranger, in the Polis Marianus crater, there is the ruins of, there's burn marks all on the ground out there that run miles deep into the surface of the planet. And they assess the situation and find out that it was solar lightning that killed this planet. Whatever existed here was killed by solar lightning. And solar lightning, of course, is when it's like think of a solar flare. You know what a solar flare is, right? You think of a solar flare, except it's like an electromagnetic pulse that the sun produces. So what happens is this solar lightning bolt hits the planet Mars and fucks it to no end and just destroys all life on its surface, except for life that lived underground, miles deep. So what happens is Zenith, while they're mining, they mine into this cavern on accident. The drill just the laser goes into a hole and he orders the drill to be cut off, and him and Joffrey go down there to take a look, and they find that there's these underground dwelling primitive cave people that live down there that aren't human, but they're human. They're that was the thing. They're human, and but they're like ancient humans. They look like Neanderthals and like sort of half evolved Homo sapiens, and they're really, really primitive. And they speak this unknown language that's, it's ancient as shit. And Zenith leaves this cave system. He's like, what the fuck? Anyway, he goes to and these tribal people living underground, they have this scarification on them that they do as like a ritual thing. It's like a traditional thing. Every child takes this scar of a symbol that's been passed down for thousands of years, and Zenith didn't know what the symbol was. It was this symbol that was shaped like this, and had all these lines in there and stuff. There was like an arch sort of symbol, and he had all these weird symbols inside of that symbol, and he didn't know what it was, and it was up on their shoulder. Up on their upper arm. But they all have these tattoos on them. And what happens is Zenith gets all confused by this. He goes back to the surface and stuff. Him and Joffrey do, and they're like, "What the fuck is all this stuff?" So what they do is they kidnap. They do what they do best. They kidnap one of these people, and then they leave some humans behind on Mars to educate these people, because they're human too. They like, well, if they're human, they must think like us and learn like us. So let's try to educate them, or at least their children. The older ones won't understand at all what we're about, but we can educate the children and make our own little empire here on Mars. So he leaves about 500,000 people on Mars with the resources necessary, to survive, a couple terraformers, some genetically modified plants that'll grow on Martian soil, and they're off. He leaves Mars, and he's flying through deep space. He leaves the solar system, he goes about 50 solar systems away, and a radio signal comes in, and it's from the planet of well, it's these creatures speaking English, but they have these really deep, raspy sort of voices and stuff that are really crackly sounding and all, and it was hard for him to understand what it was saying, but he could identify it was English, and he could identify that the thing said something to him in English. And pretty much what happens is this planet from far off, from really, really far away, hails the ship. Or so they think the planet's far away. But it hails the ship, and they're like, hey, well, hold on, let me explain why they're in deep space. Zenith went off into deep space looking for a planet that could be inhabited. There was nothing in our solar system that could be. It was all a bunch of barren, wasteland shit. The planets that could be inhabited would require lots of terraforming prior. He was looking for a planet they could just drop in, move into. Mars was the closest thing in our solar system besides Earth, and Earth was fucked. Mars ain't gonna happen. More than likely, it'll take a long. Well, it will, but it'll take. It's one of those. It'll take a long time to get there, and because its magnetic activity is slowed to a crawl, no matter how much terraforming you do, the atmosphere will just dissipate again if you stop terraforming. So it's not a permanent solution. So he's looking for a planet that they can call home that won't have to have its atmosphere constantly maintained by humans. So he's out looking for these worlds, and has so far found a few, but they're all inhabited by strange animals that are multi-stories tall. They're crazy dinosaur-like creatures. So he leaves these planets because it's like, fuck no. And now he's getting hailed by these creatures that are speaking English. And, or not speaking English, excuse me, they're speaking this ancient language. And, I think it was something to the effect of, because what I'm trying to do with this book, too, I'm not creating a whole language, but I'm creating certain fictional words with meanings behind them. Because I want these alien races, there'll be certain times in the books, like when he runs into a new race, they speak the language for a temporary period. They speak their native language for a temporary period until they figure out he's an English speaker, and they're like, oh, you're from the Dofdek Empire, you speak that language. So, yeah, but, oh, you're from Earth, okay, you speak English, okay, sorry about that, how you doing? But until they find out he speaks English or whatever, at first they're confused, they're speaking their native language. Or if the Keonians are talking among each other, you'll hear them speaking their native language. But anyway, I can't remember exactly how it goes, but I think it was that the Keonian guy, he hails them. And they're on the ship. They're on the Magnos, and him and Joffrey are piloting it, and they're flying through space. They get hailed, and Joffrey's like floored. He's like, what the fuck? What are these creatures? And what happens is the creature picks up and says something to the effect of "Fokiste lemana oxfixtemalask" or something like that, some random gibberish. But to me, it has meaning. I've written down a meaning for it. He says, "Who are you and where do you hail from?" And Zenith says, "We're humans from Earth." And he said the creature then speaks. Because Zenith didn't know what he had said, obviously, but so don't get that twisted. Zenith did not understand him. He doesn't know everything. He's not that smart, but he He's not omnipotent, you know. He didn't know what the creature said without ever hearing his language before. He just assumed that it asked him what he was, what he was doing there or something, and that was his answer. He's like, I'm a human, I'm from Earth, and I'm looking for a planet or something. And the creature cut him off and was like, you're a human? And he was like, uh-huh. And the creature says, so you're from planet Dofton, of the Dofdek Empire. And he says, I'm pleased to have you back again. It's been a long time since we've seen you. For a while we thought you were totally destroyed, but I guess you've climbed your way back up again up the evolutionary chain. He says, welcome back, human. Go ahead and land in such and such city and stuff. And Zenith's like, what fucking city? There's no planet here. And all of a sudden the planet decloaks, and it's like this massive world, 400 times the size of Jupiter. Some insane size. It's like, how does this fucking thing even exist? It defies the laws of physics, but it does, because it's sci-fi. But they land on this planet in this city as directed, and it's this capital city of Keonia. Now, what is Keonia? Okay, it's this world populated by rainforests. There's no polar ice caps. It's rainforests all the way, because the planet is so fucking big. It's so fucking big. Excuse me. Hold on a second. It's so big and it has so much tectonic activity to the point that the tectonic activity has warmed its atmosphere over time. And tectonic activity has slowed down on this planet, but it's still there to a degree. So the atmosphere still sustains itself, and left over from all those years of volcanoes and shit is this massive rainforest, because the climate's so temperate there. So they land. Oh, and also there are these floating islands in the sky that are held up by that are held up by gravity manipulation technology that float in the air. So some of the stuff is described like in the Mahabharata. These things float in the air. They're massive cities that make New York look like a child's toy. They're like, each one of these cities is like the size of the United States, and they float on these massive fucking islands, and there's hundreds of thousands of these cities across this planet. And below this city is this massive rainforest that covers the planet. And inside the rainforest, there are ancient ruins of ancient Keonian people that from spanning hundreds of thousands of millions of years. So there's ancient temples that are millions of years old in this rainforest that the Keonians have forgotten about, that are just there, and Zenith runs into later when he's exploring some of this forest just for fun. He finds these ancient temples and shit, but they're there. And so it's this world with lots of history and lots of culture and these weird alien crustacean creatures on there. But Zenith lands, and he drops his ramp, and he walks off the ship, and he's greeted that he's fucking weird-looking, upright walking lobster creatures. And one of them says, how was Emperor Dofdek? I'm sure you are a representative sent by him. And Zenith's like, who? Who the fuck? And then, anyway, the guy tells him his name, and his name was I can't remember the creature's name. It was Droog. I can't remember. It was not Droog. That's stupid. That's fucking stupid. I can't remember what it was. But anyway, he says, okay, well, we would like to reestablish a trade route with you. So, no, excuse me. He says, Emperor Cronin has requested a meeting with you upon your landing. And he's like, oh, fuck, who is Emperor Cronin? He says, well, follow me. So they take Zenith and Joffrey to the deep into this capital city. It's like Coruscant, where you have these massive islands, but the cities are layered. So the city on top of this massive, hundreds of thousands of miles wide island is layered. So you have a bottom city. On top of that's another city. On top of that's another city. And at the very top level is Cronin's place. So they hop in this anti-gravity type of flying car thing, and they go up and around to the upper level. They go up to the upper level, and are dropped off by this guy, and they're like, they're met by another guy, and he says, okay, follow me to the top floor, you'll find Cronin there. And there he's marched up there by a bunch of these armed guards that are armed with cybernetic weapons. They're not like weapons like we know of, where you hold them in your hands. They're like embedded into their body. So they got like a laser cannon built, like they cut their arm off, put a laser gun in this place. So it looks like the cyber demon from Doom, where it's got an arm cannon. That's what some of these creatures look like. So he's followed up by a bunch of Keonian military forces to the top by like a bunch of armed guards, pretty much like their equivalent of the Secret Service. So they go up to the top of this building, and there sits Cronin. He's this big badass looking dude. He's like hundreds of thousands of years old. He's immortal like Dovdek was. And he turns around. He's sitting in this sort of swivel chair like thing. And he turns around and he's like, oh shit. And he sees the humans and he's like, wow, you really are humans, aren't you? And he's like, okay. They don't call them humans in the book because it's like, in ancient times, it was a different culture. They didn't have the word human. They described themselves as being the Terrans, or no, it wasn't Terran. It was well, the name of the planet was Dofton, so they Dofdites. That's what it was. They called themselves Dofdites, and I forgot it for a second there, but it was Dofdites. But anyway, they went to this planet, and they go up to this building and all this stuff, and then Cronin's like, are you the Dofdites? Wait a minute, hold on. He says, what brings you Dofdites? I thought that you were extinct and stuff, and we haven't heard a transmission from you in hundreds of thousands of years, and all of a sudden you just pop right in. And Zenith's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Oh no, not hundreds of thousands of years. We haven't heard a transmission from you in like 13,000 years. Where have you been? We have a trade route together and stuff. What the fuck happened? And he's going off on Zenith, and Zenith stops him and interrupts him and goes, what are you talking about, a trade route and stuff? And it hits Cronin, and he's like, oh, fuck. And then he proceeds, he's like, well, would you like to know your history? Because I take it Earth was destroyed. Yeah, he says, okay. And he says, well, we've been monitoring your planet, but we haven't peered closely at your surface. He said, we've been monitoring your planet. We've had satellites in your orbit for thousands of years. Like, you know, the Black Knight that orbits Earth? Nobody knows what it is, but it emits radio waves, and it's like this weird fucking satellite thing that nobody wants to... The scientists don't want to talk about it. They're like, hey, what about the Black Knight? They ignore it. They're like, nope, no Black Knight. Don't exist. What it does. Okay, that's who put it there. That's the Black Knight. But, in my story anyway, the Keonians put it there. But, Cronin's like, yes, we have a black satellite that orbits your planet. We've been monitoring radio signals coming from your planet. You went dark for thousands of years, and then you came back on again, and we were receiving signals that were coded and stuff. We were receiving, we could monitor phone calls, but you were speaking in a language that was unknown to us. So we learned this language, and all this stuff. We monitored your internet, but you never attempted to reach out to us. Why is that? And Zenith was like, we didn't know you existed. And then they go back and forth like this for a while, and Cronin's like, well, let me tell you your history. And then he tells him the history of the Dovdek Empire, and asks Zenith what the state of Earth is today. And he's like, Earth is fucked, it's totally ruined, and he describes what it's like to him. And he says, you know what? I applaud you for leaving that planet and going to start your own empire. So here's a gift from me to you that came from the ancient Emperor Dovdek. Because Cronin assumed that he was going to try and rebuild the Dovdek Empire, which he is, but it's the Xenos Empire. A lot of it's the same. It's the same way. It works the same way. It's an empire led by an immortal emperor, which Zenith's not immortal yet, but he will be because Cronin makes him immortal. Cronin says, a leader of an empire. He said, do you have the technology to achieve immortality yet? He says, no, I don't, not yet. And he says, okay, well, he said an immortal emperor. You know, he said that an immortal emperor who isn't immortal is kind of a shitty emperor. That kind of defeats the purpose of being an immortal emperor. So they're like, okay, well, here's a gift from me to you. First and foremost, we're going to cybernetically enhance you. So what they do is they remove all of Zenith's internal organs, and they replace them with computerized devices. and how they keep his brain alive, because you're like, how the fuck they keep his brain alive? Well, they don't. They do for a time, and they feed it with blood and stuff to keep it alive. So what they do is they reconstruct his consciousness brain cell by brain cell, or it wouldn't be brain cells, it would be they reconstruct his consciousness from the ground up on a separate computer so that he can control it. Have you ever wondered about that? Like, you can clone yourself, but you have no control over the clone, or you can upload your consciousness to the cloud server. Or you can't, not now, but you will be in the future. You'll be able to upload your consciousness to a cloud server, but you will have no control over it. It'll be like a clone of your consciousness. You'll still die and it'll live on, but you won't control that consciousness. It'll think like you do. It'll be you without you controlling it. This was their way around being able to control it. They reconstructed it from the ground up, and they did some weird shit. And they're like, okay. They transferred his literal being over into this computer chip, and they plugged it in back into his head. So he's keeping the same body, but now he's got synthetic skin, and he's got all this stuff. But he's got, well, pretty much doesn't have the same body. They've totally deconstructed him and thrown all the biological parts away and replaced him with synthetic parts. His bones are made out of element 336, which is this fictional element that was found by the Keonians that only exists on the planet Keonia, which is this material that's almost indestructible. It would take the force of a planet collection. It'd take the force of you colliding, being stuck in between two black holes colliding together to break. That's what they use to make his bones. And it's this indestructible material, damn near indestructible. And he has this synthetic skin that's fireproof and shit. So he's pretty much a god now. And they do it on one condition. Cronin says, okay, now that I've done this to you, I want you to do something for me. And he says, what? He says, we noticed that massive ship that you landed. It's rich with resources. Do you plan on extracting more in the future? And Zenith's like, of course. We're spacefaring people. We're going to go and extract more, do this thing. So what Cronin says is, okay, we used to have a trade route with the Dofdek Empire. We want a trade route with you. And so they reestablished this ancient trade route, and now they're trading again. But Cronin says, we used to trade between the Isles of Motef. You would deliver your stuff to the Isles of Motef, and then they would be delivered to us. And he's like, what the fuck are the Isles of Motef? And Cronin's like, oh, you've never been to the Isles of Motef. And he gives him the coordinates to go there and stuff. And he's like, okay, well, we will do this as we did in ancient times. Because for us, a lot of stuff hasn't changed, but for you it has, but now you're coming back to the old ways. So here you go. Let's do this the old-fashioned way. The real old-fashioned way, the ancient way. The fucking ancient Mahabharata spacefaring people way. Let's establish a trade route between worlds the same way Dofdek did. Okay, Zenith says. And so Cronin, before Zenith leaves, he gives him one last thing, and he says, by the way, here's a gift from me to you. A gift from Emperor Dofdek to me and now to you. And he says, well, what is it? And he said, it's the gauntlets of, what did I call them in the book? It was the, oh, fuck. The gauntlets of, fuck. I can't remember what I called it. The gauntlets of immortality or something like that. The god gauntlets. I can't remember what it was, but there are these gold wrist-mounted, lasers that burn hot enough to melt any known material minus that shit that's on Keonia. You can't melt that. That element 333, but it can burn canyons into mountains. Like if you saw a mountain range, you could just do like this and melt the mountain range. It burns hot enough to vaporize your enemies. Like you can land on a planet and just do this number and vaporize 175 people just like in one hit. So it's immensely hot. But Zenith doesn't even have to worry about it burning his eyes because he doesn't have eyes anymore. He's got synthetic camera-like eyes now. They look like he still looks like a human physically, but he's not. He's a total Borg. So what ends up happening is Zenith is now this super powerful figure. And they don't do Joffrey that way, but Zenith learns from several other Keonians how to do this. He works with some Keonian scientists to learn. Not only are they trading materials and things, they're trading knowledge and stuff with each other too. So Zenith trades some of his ideas later on that he learns in the book with the Keonians, and the Keonians give him that they teach him the immortality cyborg thing, and so Zenith goes and makes Joffrey immortal. So now they're dual immortal emperors traveling the universe. So that's not exactly where I'm up to. I'm up to farther than that, but that's a lot of, just to give you how the book starts off and how much lore I've got in it so far. That's where it's at. And the thing is, there's a part in the book too. Let me go into this. But the thing, I'll go into this in a minute. But the thing is, I'm uploading this online for free in a way where a community can add on to it in the future. So, like the guy that wrote the Metro books, they started off online and then they caught on, and then the SCP stuff, you can add to it. You go online and you can add to the lore. You know, I want to write it online, put it online for free for people to read, so there won't be a barrier between you and the book via money. There won't be a monetary middleman there. You can just read it. Fucking go to the site, read it. And I want to have something set up like that. I'm not gonna make my own site. I want let me know if there's a site like that where you can do that. But I want to upload it where people can read it and then add on their own lore to it. Don't change what I've already had, because that's good shit. Don't change that. And I've worked really hard to get there, that lore. But what we can do here is, the universe is so vast. You could write a separate story within Skybound's title or whatever, be Skybound, but you could write an entirely separate story surrounding different characters that took place a million galaxies away at a different time period, and we could find a way to tie it in with the Dofdek Empire or something. Like the Isles of Motef weren't always one planet that got smashed by an asteroid. It was once the Motef Empire that spanned. And this is actually something from the story, but you could expand on it further, you know. Because I don't have an emperor of the Motef Empire. It was just an empire. I don't have the full details on that yet, but we could work together on that. Maybe you could give me some ideas in the comments or something. We'll make this a community thing. That's what I want to do. That way I can interact with the readers more and stuff like that, and then it'll be like a joint effort. We can just make this really, really cool thing together. I think that'd be a great idea. But talking about Dofdek though, nobody knew where he was, but Zenith finds him on this planet it's like a dead planet. It's a magma world like Mustafar from Star Wars. It's all fucked up, and you wouldn't expect any life to proceed there at all. But there's a cloaked city, totally invisible, on the planet's surface that hails. Well, Cronin knew where Dofdek was, but he's the only person that knew. So Cronin reaches out to Dofdek, and he says, "Hey, there's a guy that I want to introduce you to who came here. He's a what they call a human." And Dofdek said, "What the fuck is a human?" And Dofdek says, "Well, he's one of you, actually." And Dofdek is shocked, and he's like, "What? Are you serious? He came from Dofton?" He's like, "They call it Earth now, but yes, he came from Dofton." And he's like, "Fuck, what? Bring him on in." And so he lets Zenith land, and they meet each other and stuff, and they exchange technology with each other and all this crazy stuff. And he takes Zenith on a tour of his city and all this stuff, and him and Dofdek become friends. But him and Corvos do not. And Corvos is Dofdek's son. And Corvos didn't even know where Dofdek was until Zenith finds Dofdek. I'm leaving out some details here just because I don't want to spoil everything, but I'll just let you know how him and Corvos meet too, I guess, because it ties in with what I just told you. But Zenith meets Corvos, who's another immortal character, on the planet of Motef, the Isles of Motef. He meets him on the Isles of Motef in a casino, and because Zenith was trying to recruit military people, and he's going to all these shitty slums to recruit people, and because his idea was these people have living conditions so piss poor to the point that anything moderately better will make them think they're living in heaven. So he was going to put him to work in shitty conditions and stuff to maintain his ships and all. And the idea that he had was, okay, well, fuck it. He didn't have a good view of technocracy. He had like an authoritarian mixing an empire with a technocratic view. My ideas are not like this, but I took my views myself and warped it into an evil figure. Like, what if I was an evil sociopath dictator that ruled the world? Okay, this is what I would do if I was an evil dictator. That's Zenith. But there's elements of good to him too, like when he kills. When there's some parts in the book where people close to him die and he gets emotional and stuff, and here comes a point where he's at a standoff with the guy, and instead of shooting him, he decides not to. So he has good parts to him. He's not all evil. But he can be a real dick fuck, though, at times. But anyway, he meets Corvos in this bar, and him and Corvos meet each other and get to be good buddies. Until... Oh, and they go on missions together, because Corvos knows of all these different planets, because he's ancient. He's almost as his dad's 20 years older than he is. And then his dad made Corvos immortal through the same ways as the Keonis did, through cybernetic enhancements. Using the same materials that he bought off the Keonis, that element 333. And what was I saying? Yeah. Made him immortal through the same technological means. Excuse me. Sorry. But, when he was, like, 20 years old. So, the kid's immortal. So, he's like a 20-year-old stuck in his 20s forever. But anyway, this kid is like, him and Zenith are really good friends. Not as close as him and Joffrey are. But they're very, very close. And Zenith sort of looks out on him, because Zenith at the time's like 35 when all this stuff's going on. And he's immortal now, so he's stuck at 35. So he's not stuck at 30. He's going to get older, but he's not going to physically age. So his physical state is like 35. I guess he's like, his outer appearance, he looks like a 35-year-old, but his body inside really doesn't have an age, because it's all cybernetic. But his outer appearance, he still looks like, because they didn't want to make him look too weird. They could have made him look like a really young guy, but he requested that they keep him 35 looking. So he still looks like he's in his 30s. But, so Corvos looks the same age as he did when he was cybernized too. So they go on these missions to different planets together and take cities and do all these conquests together. And Zenith starts to look at him like he's his own kid. But Zenith meets Emperor Dofdek, like a year later. Cronin introduces him to Dofdek, and Corvos was not involved in this and gets confused, and he's like, wait, you knew my dad was alive, yet you were... How the fuck did you know my dad was alive and you didn't tell me about it? And I thought he was dead all these years. I didn't know where he was, and, you know, he got pissed at Zenith and has this fight with him that I'm not going to go into, but the fight's insane. What I've got written out for it is awesome, because you got these two brutally powerful god figures fighting each other. Just imagine what that looks like for a moment. But there's a scene, just to give you an idea of how powerful Zenith is. Take Alex Mercer, okay, from Prototype, and I want you to multiply that by 100,000 times. Combine that power with a what was I saying? Combine that power, yeah, with a Dragon Ball Z, what's that? A fusion, okay? And then multiply that by 100,000 times, and go ahead and add, what's his name? From God of War, what's his name? Fuck, I can't remember. Fuck. Let me look it up. Hold on. Oh, yeah, I remember. Kratos. Go ahead and add Kratos in there. Multiply that again. And fuck it. There you go. Oh, and adding Jesus Christ. Not even a joke, because this guy, Zenith, in the book, there's a scene where, this is a major... I'm not going to tell you about what happens because it's a major spoiler, but, well, I guess there's another time he does it too. So, anyway, I'll tell you about the other time. He goes to this planet that's a colony of his that's tried to engage in civil war with him. They're like, we want to split off from the Xenos from the Jade Empire, or the Xenos Empire, excuse me. And they're like, fuck this, we want to escape. No, it wasn't. It's his military is called the Xenos Legion. Empire is the Jade Empire, because it was the book was like Jade Technocracy, so he's, yeah, okay, I remember now. I get it confused. So he's they're trying to rebel, and they're like, okay, it's a secessionary movement. So he goes to snuff this secessionary movement. Only problem being there's millions and millions of armed troops on the planet, just as technologically advanced as what is it? Well, Zenith's men that work on the Magnus, because they haven't long been wanting to secede, so they're not like rebels that are stuck in the past like in Star Wars. They're rebels fighting the Empire so backwards and technologically unadvanced compared to the Empire, as a point it's a wonder they win. These guys are on par with Zenith's men, but they're not on par with Zenith. What happens? Zenith goes in orbit in the Magnus over this planet known as, what did I call it? Let me remember, hold on. Oh yeah, over planet Gortesh. And he's, which is like this desert type planet, but has been terraformed and now it has oceans and stuff, so it's insane. But, it took hundreds of years to be terraformed too, but anyway. He, lands on this planet in a spectacular fashion. He's in orbit, and he's got an entire army with him ready to be deployed, and he's so pissed that these people are seceding from him. And he heard that the general, too, attempted an assassination on Corvos. So, which was like Zenith's son. They wanted to really hit Zenith in the fields. Obviously, it fucking failed, because Corvos is a cybernetic godlike figure, too. But, this is before him and Corvos have beef with each other. This is before he meets Dofdak. This is in between the time. This is right before he meets Corvos. But this is on one of his controlled... This is one of the Jade Technocracy controlled planets. So anyway, on the planet of... I can't remember what I said the name was. I'm so tired. It's so late. But, on this planet, he says he's not going to deploy the army on this planet. So, he says... one of his generals says, well, don't you want us to come with you, Zenith? We're ready to fight. And he's like, no, you stay here. He said, this is personal between me and these fucks. He said, I'm going to handle it myself. Drop the ramp. And they got this ramp. He says, close the airlock and drop the ramp. They got an airlock thing in the back in this particular hangar in the Magnus, and they got this ramp that drops out. And it's designed for vehicles to be deployed on the ground. So they land the Magnus on the ground. Excuse me, stop. Wait a minute. There's an area in the ship, like, you know where you can deploy escape pods from if you play Space Engineers. You got these holes, you put the escape pod and you shoot out of the escape pod hole. There's carrier ships, like they're Vega Class A's, not C's. They're these really more advanced Vega models that go into these holes. He steps through the door and goes off into one of these Vega craft, and then he opens up the door to the back. There's doors on the Magnus too, but the Vega, this particular craft, was a troop carrier, and it was designed to be deployed on ground. And you drop the ramp and roll your tanks and whatever else out there. So what happens is Zenith says, I'm going to step out here. Instead of going all the way over here and going to this ramp, I'm just going to very conveniently, I'm going to go over here to this Vega craft and take it out for a little spin. And they're like, well, what are you talking about? And he's like, I'm going to jump to the fucking surface from orbit. And everybody's like, are you insane? You're going to kill yourself? He says, nah. You know what Zenith does? Okay, this is what Zenith does, because he's a fucking badass. He gets in this Vega Class A carrier, pilots it, he shoots out of the Magnus. Before he leaves, though, they're like, well, if you die, his general's like, well, if you die, who will become emperor? Who would take your place? And he says, no one. The empire will go to shit if I die. And they're like, but what if you die? He says, I won't, fuckers. I'll be back. And he walks out onto this Vega Class A and takes off. And he goes out above the orbit of this planet. And then he opens up, he drops the deployment ramp. Just runs. He runs straight out and jumps off into space because he's got these boots that magnetically stick to... he's got these boots that magnetically stick to the ship, and he turns off the gravity field of the ship so it'll drop to the surface of the planet behind him and explode like a fucking kamikaze or something. And it'll explode like a nuke because it's got a reactor on board. It'll blow up when it hits. So what does Zenith do? Okay, he jumps out. He cuts the ship off, cuts the gravity field off, jumps out and dive bombs to the surface of the planet head first, and when he hits, it makes an 800,000 megaton explosion because he's got these rockets on his boots too that can go really fast, so he's firing them up, And he's also, get this, he has a device built into his body that allows him to manipulate gravity waves around him too. Not to the same extent the Magnos can, because it's not a huge gravity wave drive or gravity wave manipulation drive. It's a small one inside of his body, but he can still do it. So he's going really fast into the surface of the planet, hits and blows everything to shit, liquefies the surface of the planet for like 100,000 miles in diameter. This 100,000 mile diameter area is fucked. It's like totally volcanized. It's totally fucked over. It's totally liquefied. Magma's going everywhere. And what happens is the forces of the enemy forces, they're like, what, is he dead? And they go out there to see if he's dead, and he just floats up into the air because he's got the gravity stuff, and they're like, yes. He floats up into the air, and he goes over and just goes this number with the laser cannon, and just like melts the ground around. He glasses the ground because he can glass the soil with these things too. He can adjust the heat setting. It drains more energy if he burns canyons in the mountains. Obviously, you burn a canyon in the mountain with your laser, it's gonna lessen the battery a little bit there. But he glasses the soil around them and burns them alive because the heat from the glassed soil is just scorching them. He wants them to burn slowly, so he burns around them, glasses the soil, fucks them up. And then he decides he's going to have a little fun with them. So I don't think I told you earlier, but Zenith carries a sword on him. It's a deployable sword that I got inspired by the wrist blades from Assassin's Creed. They're deployable. You do like this number and they come out and stuff. Okay, well, it's one on his arm. And he does a number where he twists his wrist and the sword comes out and it's like that long. It's like a super long sword. It's not like overly heavy. It's made out of a light alloy, but it comes out and it's like it's about as long as, I don't know what it takes. It's about 4 feet long. It's about 4.5 feet long, but it's really lightweight though. And anyway, he deploys this fucking thing and he's fighting gun-wielding goons with a sword. He's fighting like what is now 500,000 troops with a sword. They're still coming at him because they're stupid. And he's decimating them because he's Zenithion. He flies into the air. He'll launch and go straight up, then dive bomb straight back down like a bullet dive drop. Alex Mercer's try, wipe out 100 people. Then he just takes his sword and he jump. Oh, one thing he can do is he can dissipate himself. One of Zenith's abilities. When he was cybernized, he was given the ability to dissipate himself. So what happens is he literally turns his body to a bunch of atomic level molecules and disappears from visible sight and just reassembles himself behind you and fucking takes you out. So he's just teleporting all over the battlefield, killing everyone, stabbing everybody, and then they eventually decide to retreat in fear, and he goes up and past the planet's orbit. He goes out past the planet, dives straight into the surface, and hits with a force so fucking hard that it blows a chunk out of the planet. It like cracks the surface and stuff, and little pieces of the planet flake off and stuff. He's that badass. That's how badass Zenith is. Just to give you an idea, that's a little story of one of the fight scenes from the book when he goes insane and fights everybody. Blows an entire one of his colonized worlds up. This is how powerful Zenith is. However, he can't destroy everybody, because remember, he does have enemies that can challenge him. So it's not a book about this one guy fucking the universe up. There is an element of you worry about, well, is Zenith going to get killed or not? Because as powerful as he is, there are people just as powerful. Cronin, the Emperor Dofdek, Corvos, Joffrey Miller. There's a creature called the, what is it? Oh, fuck, what was it? Oh, yeah, called the Prometheus that lives off in the universe. This is this ancient figure that was actually responsible for seeding the planets. It's an ancient race of, they call them the Prometheuses, because they don't know the actual name of the race. It's this elusive, mysterious race that exists. Kind of like the engineers from Alien lore. But they're this race that live off in the hinterlands, and they're responsible for seeding these planets with life. So they're so fucking advanced that everyone in their population is immortal. And they see how, and just to give you a little minor spoiler here, this is a bit of a spoiler, so if you don't want to spoil, go ahead and skip to about a minute ahead. But what happens is Zenith fights these fucking creatures, and what happens is these creatures, they get wind of Zenith, and they're like, this fucker is so super powerful to the point that we can't let him live. This guy would decimate the universe. This is not good. He's like an imperialistic guy. He's going around taking planets and just ruining everything we've built. We've seeded life on these worlds, and he's genociding life. Like, there's a scene in the book. There's a part in the book. Not the book. It's not a book. It's an online web series thing. But anyway, there's a part that I want to write about where Zenith comes up to a planet that they're blasting anti-Jade technocracy propaganda. Hold on a minute. And so what does Zenith do to handle this? He blows up the planet with the super laser on his Magnos ship. Now keep in mind, the Magnos gets bigger and more powerful over time. As time goes on, he builds onto it more. So by this point, it's as big as Earth. It's a fucking massive ship. And it's got a super laser on the front that makes Starkiller Base look like shit. So it's this super laser that extracts the energy from stars. So it works like Starkiller Base from Star Wars. But the thing is he can move. Starkiller Base can't move. Zenith can go warp speed from star to star, draining power from stars, and then go right back to the planet he wants to fuck up. Hit it with his super laser, blow it to pieces. He does that to a bunch of planets in the story that try to secede against his empire. And eventually these the Prometheus beings are like, well, fuck it. The Prometheans, they're like, you know what? We gotta do something about this. So they actually, this race that nobody has seen for millions of years, that are like mythological figures because of how powerful they are, fight Zenith. They try to kill him. They fight him in these massive space battles and stuff that last for hundreds of years. Because there's so many ships involved that one space battle would last as long as a full-fledged war. Like World War II was like 10 years. Okay, fuck it. This is like 30 years. It's one battle. Yeah, the whole war is like 500 years long because it's a bunch of immortal beings fighting each other. And so they can live forever. The ones responsible for starting the war against Zenith live forever. The leaders of the Prometheans live forever. They're not the ones fighting, so they live on and on and on. They can just keep the war going. Zenith is immortal too. He runs an entire empire. However, his people aren't immortal. Only he and Joffrey are. And Zenith is allied with the Cronins. So the Cronins are not all immortal because they have a capitalist system similar to what Earth has now, similar to what America has. So for those who have the money, they can go to a private company and get themselves cybernized, then they become immortal. But the Prometheans don't even use cybernetics to make themselves immortal. They're just biologically immortal. And they can still do all the badass stuff that Zenith does, but they're way bigger than Zenith. One Promethean is like 25 feet tall, but they look humanoid. So I guess you could say that they're like the closest thing would be the engineers from Alien, but from the Alien movies. But the thing is, though, they're not a rip off because they don't look like the engineers. They're like 15 feet tall, but they have this sort of what is it? They have this purplish skin tone. It's like a light purple hue mixed with this blue color. So you've ever seen a person with, this is a funny comparison, but have you ever seen a girl with like dyed purple and blue hair and it looks really pretty? That's what their skin looks like. Their skin's like really bright purple and all this stuff and different color hues. And they can actually, depending on the situation, their skin can change forms. Like they're like shapeshifter beings. They can get thicker skin for armored protection and stuff. But they use some kind of serum to keep themselves immortal that no one else in the galaxy knows about. Just them, or no one else in the galaxies know about. No one else in the universe. Because this is not, the Star Wars galaxy. Warhammer 40k, we're going across several galaxies. This is across the whole universe. And as the lore expands, we'll have lore for different galaxies and things. This will be like the fucking sci-fi story. That's what I want it to be. It's like my little pet project. But he fights these beings, and I'm not going to tell you whether he wins or loses. Obviously, he stays alive, but I'm not going to tell you whether the battle is won or lost. I'm not. Oh, wait a minute, stop. I'm not gonna tell you whether or not the war ends or continues on going. I'll let you find that out when you read it. But Orwell, I might tell some of you who really want to know. I'm not going to, because there are some people who watch this video that'll be like, oh, well, don't tell me. Obviously, so don't want to spoil them for them. But for those of you who do want to know, just follow the link to my Instagram page and then hit me up there, and then I'll. For those of you who are still watching this fucking thing, that is, it's an hour and a half long. And I'm about to cut it off, but I just was finishing up here. But anyway. Yeah, he fights these beings and kills a lot of them. Not millions of them, but he kills a couple thousand of them single-handedly in this one major battle on the ruins of one of Dovdek's ancient colonies. So think about this. You got this millions of years old planet. No. Trillions of year old planet. It's a dead planet. But you have these millions of years old ruins of this ancient ass empire on this planet with all this history behind it. Fucking, it's cool. The lore makes it cool too. So you could have a battle like that with no history behind the location in which they're fighting in, and you'd be like, okay, fight in space, cool. What makes it so neat though is that like there's loads of history to what's going on, to the locations that are being fought in. Each place, I have lore for each location. Like this planet that him and the Prometheans fight on has history to it. There was a person that once led that empire. I have notes written down of Dovdek visited this empire millions of years ago to speak with the people about setting up a trade route through this planet with another planet that's long gone because it got hit by an asteroid. But I mean, crazy stuff like that's what makes it cool. I have lore so expansive it would make your head spin. Lore that's not even worth a shit, that nobody would care about. Like I have little backstories written for minor characters. Like, have you ever wondered when you watch Star Wars, when you see these massive ships like flying, when you see Darth Vader's flagship, or you read some of the extended lore, where Darth Vader goes to this planet of primitive beings or something, and and he's flying his flagship and on a mission from the Emperor to this planet to do something, and you're like, man, I wonder what the people on that planet must think, seeing all this shit fly in. They're like in total shock. Well, I have some things written down from the perspective of the people on those planets, like what they would think when they see all this stuff. And it's interesting, because I've always wondered that, and I was like, you know what, why don't I put in the story what these beings think? So I have like external lore. It's not going to be in the mainline story, but I'm going to have like a little separate thing that I'll put on somewhere else where you can read about what their perspectives are. Like Joe Bob Johnson Cleetestein Jr. on the fucking planet of butthole something, on planet asshole, off in the Sector system, when Zenith was floored and shocked when Zenith landed in the Magnos. I mean, it was like just stuff like that. I'll have all these weird references to, these weird little mini stories of things going on within the mainline story. So it's just crazy stuff like that. And also I have I've literally tried to make the laws of physics work within this world too. I'm trying to make it as realistic as possible, but it's technically a sci-fi only because we don't have the technology for these things yet. And this is interesting to me. I want to make a video about this standalone video, but I'll briefly talk about this and then cut it off. But the thing is, I'm sort of done talking about my book now, but I want to talk about why it's borderline not a sci-fi. See, the reason it's science fiction to us. I think that we humans, we're not as advanced as the Keonians from this book or something, but we humans, we know of gravity waves existing, but we don't know how to manipulate them yet. We don't have anti-gravity technology yet. We have not left Earth yet. Well, we've gone to the moon, but we haven't colonized anything outside of Earth yet. Keyword and all of that, yet. We're going to the moon before 2029. There's a bunch of private companies that want to do it. They're all working together with each other too. We're going to the fucking moon to colonize it. Okay? Also, there's movements to go to Mars before that time, too. Going to Mars. Gonna start colonizing Mars. We're taking the first steps to leaving this planet, and we also have laser weapons capable of blowing jets out of the sky. I don't know if you knew that or not. I was recently watching a thing about the U.S. military has this device. It's this invisible laser, and that fires at jet fighters. It's an anti-air laser. They mount them on battleships. But these fucking things can blast an F-16 out of the sky. Straight into the ground. It stands no chance against the Inviso laser. But we have stuff like this, and then we have a railgun in development too. We have a railgun already, I believe it is. It fires a solid projectile, solid munitions using electricity rather than a combustion force. Instead of using, the mechanism of the hammer hitting the back end of the bullet causes an explosion. There you go. Rather than using explosive force, it uses electricity to drive the solid munition out, and it goes way fucking farther than it would if you were using explosive power. But we have stuff like that now. We have quantum computers in primitive forms. Sure, these computers take up entire warehouses. It takes a fucking building you have to build them inside of another building. And then you got your quantum computer. It's not all small based and miniaturized yet, but it's there. We've got it, and it'll take time, but we'll eventually miniaturize it. Smartphones in the 80s were like this fucking big. Now you can call people from your wristwatch. It's amazing. And people are like, oh, we'll fucking do, we can't, what is it, people for the longest time are like, we can't build a plane type craft, like a UFO you'd think, like a plane type of craft that can go from the ground to space, without, we can't build something like that. You'd need like an Atlas rocket. Not an Atlas rocket. Yeah, you'd need like an Atlas rocket, or you'd need you need one of those fucking, what was it, Saturn. You need a Saturn rocket or an Apollo. You need NASA's rockets to go. Okay, well then the Blackbird comes out. Okay, then the Blackbird comes out in the 1970s, and it's a craft that can go from ground to, not to space, but to orbit. It went into orbit. The fucking thing went into orbit, and then everybody was like, they did it. What the fuck? And so, I mean, we're getting there. And then there's the rumored TR-3B Black Manta craft that I believe exists. I've seen the fucking thing with my own two eyes. That's why I believe it. But I don't expect everybody to believe it. Everybody else to. So, yeah. Be that as it may, though. People think as they will, but I mean, excuse me, for someone that's never seen it, I wouldn't expect them to believe it is real. But I have seen it when I was younger. Just take that and do with it what you will. But it's this black triangular shaped craft with 3 thrusters at the bottom, 1 at the front corner of the thing, and 2 at the back corners. Or excuse me, 4, because there's 1 in the middle, 2 in the center, and it's badass. It can fly fast speeds. I saw it. It came over the tree line at my house when I was a kid. I made a video about that, but almost completely silent. It was just like a low kind of sound because of how low it was. But it wasn't audible if you were standing 30 feet away. It was just right up underneath it because we came right over us. It's the fucking, like, probably 50, 60 feet in the air because it came right over the tree line, stopped and spun like this. Not right over the tree line. It was like maybe, you take, it was probably like the height of the height of a 7-story building above us. And we were watching it spin like this in the air, and then it stopped spinning, and it pointed its front end forward and went shoo, and took off. But if that is real, what I believe it is, but if you agree with me in that thinking, then we already have that too. And that craft has been rumored to be able to go from the ground to space, to fucking space, within minutes, within seconds, because it can break light speed. So, I mean, it's insane. It's insane. And actually, if you believe what Bob Lazar says, we've already been reverse engineering alien craft. So we already know aliens exist, but it's not known to the public because Why isn't it known to the public? Because everybody in the world has this sort of view that they're the only beings in the universe that shatter everybody's worldview. Half the world is still religious, so I mean, so long as religion reigns, you're not going to have very, very open knowledge of religion. I'll make it. I mean, of aliens. I'll make a video about that too. I got so many topics to make videos about because I haven't made videos in so long. How about that? But it's incredible, the technology that we have already, and the speed at which we are progressing our technology is crazy. And you know, I look forward to the day. I may not get to see it, but I'll get to see the basic rudiment. I may not live long enough to get to see it unless, once again, we're on the eve of being biologically immortal too, if you don't know. Things like human augmentation are starting to become a thing. Your organs go bad, we'll replace it with a mechanical pump. Your arm's fucked up, you've got Parkinson's disease. Guess what? No more arm for you. The only thing that would be able to kill you is Alzheimer's, dementia, or something like that. Excuse me, some mental illness. You get brain cancer, then you die. All that's left to do to achieve biological immortality is figure out how to move our consciousness onto a computer chip. Okay? Or to a hard drive or something that can be booted from the hard drive. And then we need to figure out how to allow yourself to wake up and control that. You know, we put this chip in your body, now you control yourself. It's like you just wake up, they put you to sleep, upload your shit to this chip, take it off, put it back in your body. And it's not like a clone where then you look over and you see the clone if you get up and walk off. No, you wake up again. It's like, huh, okay, what's going on here? Oh, you have a chip in your brain, sir. Or you have a chip brain, sir. Now you're immortal. You just need maintenance on your chip every now and again. Put some thermal paste on that fucker. Yeah, you know what I'm saying. It's like that's all that's left to do is that. We've got prosthetics. We just need to refine that technology a bit more. And boom, Bob's your uncle. There you go. Fucking, that's it. Then you're biologically immortal if you can figure that out. So, I mean, we're on the eve of Skybound already. We're about to go Skybound. That's why I named the book that. Because it was like, you know what? Because I was thinking about it one day and I was like, it's going to be so cool one of these days when we go Skybound. When we're going Skybound from Mars. And I was telling that to one of my friends while we were talking. He says, he didn't say anything to me about it, but he was like, yeah, that'd be pretty cool. And I thought to myself, I said, wait, that'd be it. Hey, I'm looking for a title for my book. There it goes. But, there we go. Because that fits. But, yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to cover. I've covered all the bases. So, that's Skybound in a nutshell. That's not the entire book. There's way more to the story. Like, I barely touched the Prometheans. But I'm going to turn my light back on now. So, yeah, that's pretty much all that there is to that. Cut all this off. I'm trying to get my lighting off here. I don't know why I didn't just wait till I cut the video off to do this. Whatever. It don't matter. But, come on, fucking load. Anyway, that's all there is that I'm going to tell you about Skybound for now. Anyway, until you see this thing written online. But yeah, that's it. That's the lore behind Zenith. That's backstory. That's some backstory for you. So when you're reading the story, for any newcomers that'll be reading, you'll be like, whoa, what is this? Now you know. And sort of just to give you an idea of where I'm at, because I haven't written it online yet. I haven't written anything of it yet. It's all stuff I've come up with in my head, and I've written little shorthand notes about the stuff and all that. Just to give you an idea of where I'm at, how far I am into writing it, because I haven't done an update in 6 months. So there you go. I'll see you. I'm going to play Space Engineers on my laptop that you cannot see. Right over there. So, yeah, I'm going to play Space Engineers, motherfuckers. So, I'll see you later. I'm signing off, and I'm going to get these videos uploaded. See ya.